Good morning. I call this meeting of the City Council work session to order. This is Thursday, June the 2nd, 2022. As I always remind folks, we try to have our work sessions on the Thursday before the upcoming Tuesday City Council meeting. The idea for these is to help the council and the mayor have conversations with department heads and others before we go into the meetings on Tuesday to hopefully be better prepared. As you can see, we don't always have every council member here, but they're able to watch these after we've had them. Many times they've got other obligations or work things they have to do, but we appreciate everybody that's here. Mr. Irby, would you open us in prayer, please, sir?
Yes, sir. And I'm assuming he asked me to pray because he thinks I'm the one that's most needed for his prayer. And I am, I agree. And I agree with that. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we're so thankful for all the blessings you've bestowed upon us. We thank you for waking us this morning and giving us some semblance of guidance for our lives. And for this meeting, Lord, we just pray that you be with this group, be with the mayor, council members, and all the participants, that everything that we do and say is to glorify you, and that needs to be a constant in our lives. We thank you for the weather, whether it rain or shine. We know that you're the reason and you have a plan for everything that you do, Lord. And Lord, to close this prayer, I just want to ask that you help each and every one of us to be the light of Christ, and people can see that in us. These are the blessings we ask and thank in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. Well, we'll go ahead and move into the agenda topics, but one thing I do want to talk about just for a minute before we start on today's agenda is this discussion is not on the agenda, but I do want to publicly thank the Board of Supervisors again for allowing us to come and visit with them during their meeting on Monday. We went over and, as many of you know, talked about ARPA funding and the watershed and flooding and sewage issues in the city and county. And I think we were able to articulate to them the importance of us trying to work together on some of these issues for all of our citizens, not just to try to correct some of the current problems that we have, but some of the long-term issues that we need to really have a long-term plan for the city and for the county. So they've invited us to come to their next work session. We think it will be Monday to follow up with them about what they can potentially do to maybe match some of the funds that we're looking for the watershed and flooding. They've already set aside $350,000 to help us with the blight program that we have, which we're also looking for more federal dollars to support those. But the main thing that I wanted to say was that, it's not always easy for the city and county to work together on different issues that affect all of our citizens. But Columbus and Lowndes County is not unique to that. If you look at most city and counties, it's hard sometimes for everybody to work off the same page. And what I'm encouraging us to do is, even though that it seems doubtful sometimes, that we not give up. We continue to reach out and try to work on these issues, because at the end of the day, it's our citizens who benefit from it. And they also do not benefit from us not continuing to try to work together. So I just wanted to publicly, because many of them have reached out to me since and thanked us for coming, for listening to us on Monday and continuing the conversations on how we can work together. So I just wanted to say that going up. And so now we'll go on into the topics for discussion. And I will start with our COO, Jamie, to talk about the update on some of the summer programs that she's been leading.
Concerning reclaiming our youth, we will be taking registration applications on Monday and Tuesday of next week at the Fire Training Center that's in the Strip Mall across from the municipal complex. Mission Acceleration, I think, will be beginning June 14th. And we have Mr. Greg Lewis here who will tell you about his programs at Parks and Recreation.
Thank you. Thanks, Greg.
to everybody, and thank you for allowing me to come. Passing around a packet that I put together for you. Of course, the first one on top is a flyer for the kickball. And kickball is going to be, it's going to start June the 20th. And in this particular kickball, the parents will be out there playing with the children because we're trying to encourage parent participation throughout our city. So we encourage you, if you want to, as an elected official or department head, if you want to come out and get on one of the teams, you're welcome to do that as well. Summer Kids Fest, which is held at Sim Scott in Townsend, that program started on Tuesday. If you look in your package, you'll see the different activities that we have scheduled for June. July calendar is getting ready to come out probably by the end of next week. We have a couple of agencies that we're working with that's going to be coming out to speak with us to tie up some loose ends and make sure they can have the appropriate date. The trips that are in there, that are also in that calendar that we have, and what the summer camp is, the children are dropped off at 7:30, and they're picked back up at 5, so parents that work, you know, they can actually drop them off in the morning before work and pick them up after work. This camp was $85 per child, and that is how we buy the pizza and the snacks and the things like that. We're partnering with the school this year. On Fridays, we will be going to the schools. It's called Fun Friday, where their students will come out there and they'll do fun learning activities and things like that to help with the summer slide. I will say the school has been real good to Parks and Recreation. They also, in July, they're going to have several camps where they're actually going to send the buses to the park to pick up our children, and this is for anybody. So what I'm saying is, even if you're not in our summer camp program and you want to go participate in the camp, just come over to the park, and it'll be at Sim Scott and it'll be at Townsend. And just get on the bus and they'll take you over there. They'll feed you breakfast. They'll do their camps, their activities. Then they'll feed you lunch, and then they'll bring you home. And those are the things that we have set up for this summer. And I will make sure when the July calendar is out, I will make sure that you're included in a part of that. Any questions or concerns?
You say your program starts?
The Summer Fest started Tuesday.
Okay.
The summer camp, if you want to use a better way, it started Tuesday at Townsend and Sim Scott.
It's full?
Yes. Now, we do encourage those that want to participate, you can come down to the park and get on a waiting list. And on that, you don't have to pay any money, but on that waiting list is dated and timed. And what happens is that if a child drops out of camp, or if I have some children that are there maybe for 3 weeks and then they're going to, to visit grandma or something like that. So as openings become available, we'll pull from that holding file. And like I said, it doesn't cost you anything to get on the holding file, but you do have to fill out the application. And when a vacancy becomes available, we will call you and tell you to come down and pay your money.
When you said it's full, how many participants are we talking?
We're based off, right now it's based off of our employees that we have. Summer employees are hard to find this year. We're actually short-staffed because at 1 o'clock I actually have to go over there and sit a while until the supervisor takes lunch. But it's 51 at each site. Now, like I said, when we get more additional staff, then we can increase. But right now we're short-staffed at Townsend. It's not that we don't have the money to pay them, it's just that we don't have the applicants to fill it with. Any other questions or concerns?
Thank you, Greg.
I just want to add that Greg and Jamie and I had talked about some opportunities for the youth in the city, and I applied to a group that helps set up esports leagues, computer software, gaming for the different youth, different age groups, and they've sent me back a bunch of information. We qualify because of the challenges our city has for them, and so they're looking now to, they sent me a half dozen emails that I have to go through to get some depth, but I think this may be, at some point in time, be great to incorporate with our school system and move forward with it, but I think there's still an opportunity to get that done.
Yeah.
Yes.
One last thing, and I want to say this because it's going to happen during the summer, but I'm really, really, really close to getting an award for some money for Hank Aaron Park to actually put up a new roof on the pavilion to refurbish that park right there. And I should know something, hopefully, if not this meeting, by the next meeting. But like I said, I don't want to put the horse before the cart, but it looks very, very promising that we're going to get some money to do some renovations at the Hank Aaron Park, which is located over on the south side. Yes, ma'am.
Post Park.
Okay, we have been meeting the committee for the Reclaiming Our Youth. We've been meeting, and one of our meetings took place over at the activity building. And of course, you know, the activity building is where we had the homeless to come in at. And what we're looking at is seeing how we can refurbish that building. I think the biggest thing on that building right now, we met with Mr. Weigel yesterday, and I hope that they are right, but we think that that roof might be compromised a little bit, but if not, Chief, he was here, but Chief was over there this morning. They got on top of the building and they took pictures, and they're gonna let us know what condition that building is, and we're looking at painting that building, but we're looking at making that building for the targeted group that we're trying to reach, make that kind of like a headquarters for them, and then we're gonna look at with what Mr. Jim said about the gaming and setting it up to where, you know, you have TVs, you have games, and looking at, you know, pool tables and things like that, and give them a place where they can actually come and feel comfortable. And of course, with the police and fire, you know, they're helping with security and things like that. But I think that it'll be a nice place for them to call their own. And we know that once we get them inside of that building, we know that they're not on the street. So we're looking at making that, for lack of a better word, maybe a teen center, but I don't really want to call it a teen center, but it will be good for the community. And also it serves a double purpose, because when they're not using it, just like the camps, that's a field trip within itself, just across town, to take them over and let them play games and have a picnic or something like that. So I think that's a good, promising idea, and we'll be able to report back to you more after we get the reports from Mr. Weigel and from the fire. Yes, sir, Mr. George.
I got there yesterday. One thing that Kenny told me that he thought would be more pressing now is an air conditioning. This is something coming on that's getting in place, air conditions.
And then we have a unit there, but that unit does not have, it doesn't cool. I mean, it doesn't heat. And yesterday we went in, we found out we need to put some Freon in it, but like I said, we're gonna make it happen. But Mr. Weigel did mention, as well as one of those guys, the hair people that you sent to me, they had mentioned that it's probably better, because it's a dinosaur, and it's a huge, huge unit, but it's probably better to just get a smaller unit that will cool that area and heat and cool, because we do have gas heaters on the wall, and we're gonna take those down during the summer, and then we're gonna need a source of heat when winter comes around.
Any questions? Jamie, do you have any more updates on that area?
The chief, I thought he was here to discuss the fire academy, but I think.
Is he right there? Okay. Chief, I'll give another update on Mission Acceleration and the Boy Scout hut, or the, what do we call it now? The Annex, yeah. We're making progress on that building as well. I'm happy to report. We've had all volunteer at no cost to the city. The inside is almost completely repainted. We've got the donations for the paint for the outside of the building. We had a landscape crew that came in and for free removed the shrubbery and stuff around the building, which is going to help. We're looking at ways to maybe match up there what they have over on the where the planting is over by the actual farmers market, to kind of make those look alike. We're getting the floors and stuff buffed at this point, and then people are looking at volunteering to donate to help like upgrade the bathrooms and all those things. Now, the Mission Acceleration will not begin until June the 14th, because there is, I don't know if people realize this, but there is a primary election for our federal congressional seat that will take place. They will have the building for June 6th, 7th, and 8th. And so that's a polling place. So the Mission Acceleration program will not begin, which is a reading program, until the next week. So we're excited about the excitement around that program and people helping us upgrade that building as well. Any questions? Did you find the chief?
We didn't find the chief.
Well, he was looking out the back door when I was coming. I don't know if somebody had called him or he had somewhere to. You want to move on? We can come back if we find him. Well, that's you too. Debris pickup. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Currently, we have 3 running boom trucks, so a lot of the issues that we've been having with debris, we should be able to quell some of those issues. Want to thank Mr. Langford and the garage for being able to help us with that. But as far as the debris, we should see a big difference going forward.
Do those debris trucks require a CDL? Okay, Casey.
Hey, good morning. Yes, Mr. Brigham, they do require CDLs.
I was reading an article in one of the municipal magazines that I get talking about how a city sponsored employees and helped them get the CDL so that they had plenty of people to, step in when they come up short or something like that. I didn't know whether we did that or not here.
We don't have that program, but the situation with that, Mr. Brigham, is even when we train someone on a boom truck to be an operator and that has CDLs, once they get trained in my department, they tend to look for something else that's paying them a little bit more money than what we're paying them. That's been the problem from the past 3 years now. But as Ms. Jamie said, we do have all 3 boom trucks in operation right now, so hopefully within the next week or so, we'll see some tremendous changes.
That's all we're working this morning.
How many employees you have?
Right now, I have 47.
How many are you budgeted for?
Actually, it was 61.
Do you have any applications of people?
Yes, we've been, even on last week, we hired, along mayor and council, y'all voted the 4 in last week, and Ms. Pat has been scheduling some for early part of next week. We had some for this morning, but we couldn't get those scheduled for today. So next week, we will be doing some more interview.
One of the things too I'll mention is that we've had some questions about some trees that have had to be removed because some of them were dying and some of them had disease, and there's some other plantings around the city that are facing that same.
Yes.
They're not doing well. So what I wanted to, Casey and I were talking about this and some others, we're going to try to meet soon and discuss the beautification of the downtown area and Highway 45 where that's been in the past. Some of the trees that we had to remove were actually, I think the money was donated by the Garden Club's organization here in Columbus, and they were curious about some of the trees. So we're going to, this has been an ongoing issue for the city over the years. One of the things that Casey and I talked about early on was that some of the plants that we were planting, they're difficult to maintain in those areas. So going forward, we're going to try to consult with people on what kind of plants would be easier to maintain in those areas. Or are there some areas where we were doing plantings that maybe we don't need to have plants, but just better landscaping and those kinds of things. So I just wanted to mention that because some people have reached out about it, some wanting to help and some just curious as to what our process was on that. So we're going to be working on that as well.
Mr. Bush, we don't pick up couches, TVs, we have a whole list of things we don't pick up. Did we used to pick them up?
Yes.
And what changed?
Well, we used to pick them up, actually, the city ordinance states that we shouldn't pick these items up.
We should?
We shouldn't.
Oh, okay.
And I would consider, we cater to a lot of stuff in Columbus. And once you start something, especially when we had the storm, we was picking up everything, and people started putting out everything. So this kept going on.
Let's go back before the storm. I understand that
Right.
the people kind of got in the habit of putting everything out there. Before the storm, did we pick up?
Yes.
We did pick up stuff?
Yes.
Even though our ordinance says, don't put this out there, we would pick it up because it was not getting picked up.
And
Not all of it, some of it, right?
If it's household garbage, we wouldn't pick it up. But if they had furniture out there, bulky items, we was picking it up. And here's the reason. If my guys pass it, they'll call me and I said, well, we'll pass it up. a week or two later, you know, I get a call saying, let's pick this stuff up. We can't continue to do that, Mr. Green. And what I like to do is what Ms. Jamie and Ms. Sasha was talking about, and also the mayor was talking about, trying to get a system where we can actually get this under control. We don't have we have a city ordinance, but we don't have any guidelines to actually fine people or to make sure they take these items where they're supposed to be at, which is the landfill.
One of the problems too, and tell me if I'm right or wrong on this, but it was my understanding when I was checking into this, Councilman Green, was that a lot of that larger stuff will damage the boom trucks. I mean, that was part of the reason we were having trouble with them breaking down so often, was them trying to pick up things that they really weren't made to pick up.
And these are cylinders that's on the boom truck, which some cylinder $1,400, some might be $2,000 just to replace. But what do we do when it's all out on the street and you're getting complaints, and you all get complaints, and then, you know, we say, pick it up.
So we need to have something that has some teeth into it of how we could fine people for putting
Yes, sir.
this debris on the streets. That's what we're lacking right now.
That's what we lack.
Okay.
And also what we're trying to do is to communicate with folks to let them know what we will pick up and what we can't, and where they can deposit it and where they cannot deposit it. Even the brush and stuff that we're picking up, the limbs and stuff are supposed to be a certain length, and not
Yes.
just anything you
Yes.
throw out there. What would be helpful is many times when people have people coming in and doing yard work for them, if they would have them go ahead and take the stuff with them, when some do and some don't. That would be very helpful. So we have a lot of issues out there like that we've been trying to help communicate people with. We've done it through social media. We've done it. We've talked about trying to get it more on the website, getting in the papers, as a way to communicate with folks. Because sometimes people put it out there, they just assume that you will pick it up when you
that's
don't.
right.
Yeah.
Can you put a notice on their door, like that we don't pick this up, and you have X number of days to remove it?
And that's what this system, I'm thinking that we're gonna go attend, we'll have something that I like that. So we can give them a notice and give them time enough to remove it, take it away, or then we'll issue a
Because
fine.
I didn't know, although I never put furniture out, I didn't know where we could take tires until Angela gave us that grid. And it explains everything. But if you don't know, you just put it out there because you think that's what you're supposed to do. They're not trying to break any rules.
Right.
It's just a lack of education or knowing.
Have you thought?
We need to go, I'm sorry. We need to go a step further and reach out to some private collectors and have a list that we can post that says,
Yes.
because a lot of people don't have the truck or capability to take it somewhere.
Right.
But they would pay somebody to come pick up their stuff. They just don't know who to call.
Mhm.
So that might be something we can reach out to some local business people to
Right, and
put on the list.
Some of these guys, some of the local ones that actually picks up scrap and stuff like that, have called me and said, do y'all have any information that we can call some of these people to pick up stuff? And they're willing to do it, but we just gotta get something in play.
And I've spoken to one young man, and hopefully we can get a meeting next week concerning that.
Have you thought about going to the award system again?
Yes, sir. I talked about,
That's what we want
I was just talking about it this morning, Councilman.
So I can say this, and it's coming from me, with you having 47 employees, you just hired 4, that's roughly 50, you're budgeted for 61. If we get you 10 more employees, you'll have well enough amount of people to start your award system,
We
correct?
can start, yeah, we can get started, and that's what my goal was, just to get started. Even with the 61, I'm talking about, we're talking about with just grass cutting, and these other guys that's in the ward will take care of all this stuff, but with 61, you're still talking about my, boom truck operator, the whole department, but, yes, that will get started.
What
With
is
the
the, Jim and I were talking about this because of when he was in Jacksonville and the boom trucks going around and picking up stuff in that city. And he said that there was like a 2-week time frame between each ward in some cases. What is our goal to try to get between?
I'll go, Mary, when we're running, boom trucks are running, we got the equipment, we have the operators there to work. we was picking up once a week, each ward. And it was getting taken, and right now with the 3 trucks out there, we would get back to it once a week. On a Monday and Tuesday, Ward 1 and 2, no, they was gonna be picked up. On Wednesday, Ward 3 and 4, they knew it was gonna get picked up on Tuesday, on Wednesday, Ward 5 knew it was gonna be getting taken care of, and Thursday, we did Ward 6. And we did that constantly, every week they was picking up stuff. But with the equipment breaking down and operators leaving, it tends to get us behind, and that's what didn't happen.
One more thing, we don't have overtime built in your department, do
Yes,
we? Have you used all of it, or
I haven't used all of it yet.
we probably need to work on some overtime too?
Right, to try to get some of this, and like I said, with the 3 boom trucks out there, Councilman Beard, y'all will see, some tremendous effort and work being taken care of in y'all wards. Only thing I hope for is that we can continue, these equipment stay running for us.
And we're getting ready to go on budget cycle too, so I need you to work good with our COO and our CFO to get your people some extra money and see where you can cut out some stuff in and all of that stuff. All departments need to be paid what they need to be paid, but we're getting ready to go into that cycle, so that's something you definitely need to. If that's the problem that your people telling you, just like with police and fire department, we need to figure it out.
And with that, that's good for you to, you and Jamie to move into, you've got on here to talk about some of the equipment needs we've talked about before, but I think you got another update for us on some of that.
Well, I'm still waiting on Mayor and the council. I'm waiting on y'all to give me the money so I can go ahead and try to purchase some of the equipment. 600,000 would take us a long way. I need trucks, the crew cab trucks, in order for my guys to get around in. As y'all seen, I'm pretty sure some of the trucks it's really not worth being in, but we do what we have to do. I did have on the list for an excavator, 323 excavator, but even me and Councilman Green had mentioned about that, also about I need another boom truck that's actually gonna hold up. So we can probably take that excavator off and leave that money there to get a boom truck, and we need also a sidearm. We don't have that one that we have now. It's going to start running. We need a whole deck on it now, which costs $6,000 in order to get it running. Yes, sir. That sidearm would do a lot of work for, especially the roads that you're talking about in your area, Mr. Green. Because we just can't just go down there and just cut these limbs that actually an inch or inch and a half thick.
And we've talked about too, Casey, in the past, is like if we were to, because some of this equipment need is so expensive, that maybe in some of the high areas where there needs to be a lot of grass cutting and stuff, we've talked about possibly maybe outsourcing some of those jobs to like crews that have, equipment to do that. Would that be helpful to have extra, people outside of Public Works doing some of that?
And that's what Kevin, myself, and I think you was in on it too. For the larger ditches that we can't get in, I got some ditches that we can't get in. I can't even put guys in and need equipment to go in, which I don't have equipment. But
Some
yes.
of them tell me they wanted boots because they were afraid of snakes too.
But yeah, they got the boots, but still,
Yeah.
they all have boots. But the thing with that,
They want snake boots, they told me. Yeah.
Waiters.
yeah,
They
I
call
think
them snake
they'll pass out with waders on in the summertime.
They'll pass out when they see the snakes too, they told me.
But I think some of that can be sourced out, especially the main ditches. And I think Kevin.
But what about just some of the mowing areas? I mean, are there some areas like, what about the parks, Greg? Are there some things that would help if we had, we outsource some of that too? Because there's a lot to cut. There's a lot of grass to cut, and it grows fast. I mean, when we have rains like this, something y'all just cut will be right back up again. I mean, that's what I'm wondering, if we look at trying to set aside a certain amount of money that, if it would be helpful to outsource some of those things.
And that's why I was saying the major ditches, I think we can, if I get the ward system in there,
Yeah, that's what we want.
it would be no problem to keep up the city and keep it looking nice.
Okay.
And that's a goal that I've been wanting to have for a long time.
They should work on it. That's the award system. I'm gonna make a motion for it.
Well, and I agree, Councilman Beer, because the thing about that too would be just like if we could do that with the police department again too, is the citizens in the wards get to know the employees that are coming out
That's right.
there, and they know what they, and that's one of the main things that we need to try to do to help y'all, is be able to communicate to folks when there's a holdup on
Right.
things, or when, we hadn't gotten to something that we've talked about getting to. That's the hardest thing for everybody, is to make sure communication.
That's true.
And so I think going into an award system like that would be most helpful, yeah.
And it's just like, I don't like bringing the county in it, but they have districts. And each district have a certain amount of people and equipment to take care of their own district. And I think each ward should do the same.
Well, I'm very interested in helping y'all get the equipment that you need, but also helping you get your facilities painted and cleaned up down there. I think that would go a long way for morale too, if you're,
That's right.
so.
Well, coming from a financial standpoint, he said he needs $600,000. Do we have $600,000 that we can do for it?
We have sources, but we've, the challenge is how many times do we spend those same dollars different ways? So we have to be, if you're looking at any of the grant money, that has been earmarked pretty much already, unless we change our minds on it. So, if you're talking about out of just the general fund, probably not.
Well, I know with ARPA, we do have $1.4 million that's unallocated, so.
Well, that was what we were looking at for Columbus Light and Water, I think, right? To help them with the match.
I thought we were gonna take it out to 3.
That's a possibility. I thought it was, because when I mentioned that, they said, no, somebody said there's another $1 million there.
$900,000 that we haven't allocated, and it's $550,000 out of the premium pay that's not.
Yeah. Well, I think what we could do, and because I agree with you too, Councilman Beard, that we need to try to figure out, where can we find this money as fast as we can. But that's why I also brought up the outsourcing thing too. Like, do we invest in all of that equipment now, or do we get the equipment that is most pertinent and then maybe outsource some of the other stuff until we have the funds? So I think in having Jim and Jamie and Casey and all looking at that, and they have been talking about the budget already for public works, so I think we got to stay on top of it.
There's no way we're gonna be able to keep the city looking nice, y'all, without any equipment. There's no way.
Yeah, and personnel.
True.
Yeah. All right, any other questions for Public Works?
I do have one more. Chrissy, if you were to get this money today, how long would it take you to make these purchases? I know some of them. Like,
You have to bid, you have to go through the bidding process, but, and here again, I'm looking at, I know with some of the equipment, they're on back order. So that's why I'm saying, the sooner we can go ahead and try to get some money allocated to do this, the better off that we can be able to go ahead and get some equipment in.
And the equipment that we have, granted, the pickup trucks are not worth a lot, but surely there were some. What's the process of getting those sold in order to recoup some of the money? I mean, we've got mowers that we need to replace, but it is a mower that can be rehabbed by someone, so it's not totally worthless. Is there a plan to get some of this equipment sold to help offset?
And I thought, well, we actually have Thompson Auction. It's a group out of Kosciuszko. They normally comes around and do an auction. We did last one about 10 years ago, which we got some pretty good revenue from that auction. So, but getting this stuff on the surplus and then getting it off our books, which shouldn't be hard, but just getting the VIN numbers and getting that to Ms. Pat or whoever's over there to get that off. That should bring some revenue in.
Any other questions? Thank you, Casey. We appreciate you. All right, next on our topics of discussion is the crime lab. Good morning.
Good morning. Hi. So I'm going to give you a little background on the Crime Lab. We actually opened in 2008. Most people do not know we exist, but we are there. We provide analytical services for 25 plus agencies. Some agencies actually drive 3.5 hours one way to use us. The analytical services that we provide are controlled substances, digital forensics, which is cell phone forensics, and fingerprint analysis. We also provide other services for the city, such as property and evidence for the police department, crime scene investigation for the police department, and drug screens for the city. So any new hire, post-accident, random drug screens, we do that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our drug lab. Our drug lab is actually the workhorse of our lab. It provides 90% of the services that we do. We are using a GCMS that was refurbed to us in 2013. We purchased it in October. It is a 2001 build working from technology from 1996. So it's a little outdated, and it's an Agilent. So Agilent is actually making this instrument obsolete. So eventually we're not going to be able to fix it. It breaks, we're not going to find parts for it. And with the drug lab being the majority, the 90% of what we do, I'm asking that you guys consider purchasing a new GCMS. And maybe two, if we're feeling frisky on it, I don't know. They're actually $185,000 for one of them. And it's going to be not the latest model, it's going to be a step under it. So hopefully the price would not be continuing to go up, but it is going to. They told me it's going to increase 3% every year. And so I originally got a quote in 2020, and it was $155,000. And now it's jumped up to $185,000. So we are backlogged to 2020 in the drug lab. We received, let me get the number correct for you. $968 cases in 2020. We are down to 26. Drug cases usually have a lifespan of 2 years, and so that's how long it takes, or that's how long you're given until you can no longer use that case. So we've had some people asking us, you know, when's our case is going to get done? And then in 2021, we received 1,095 drug cases, and we're still working those too. And in 2022, from January to yesterday, we have received 437 cases. We actually received 50 cases yesterday. That is a lot for us. 50 cases in one day, when we're looking at some months we get 50. So we are being used. Like I said, people are driving 3.5 hours to come to use our lab, our little lab here, which is awesome for us.
50 cases, how far of a radius would you say that is? Where were those coming from here?
Where are they coming from? So Starkville and Lafayette County, so Oxford, so like 2 hours and like 45 minutes.
Can you explain how we've lost DeSoto and also the financial benefit of having this GCMS?
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so DeSoto County started using us in July of 2020. From July of 2020 to March of 21, they brought 414 cases to us. 414 times 60, somebody with a calculator, do that math for me. That's how much money we are bringing into the city. with one agency. How much? 24,000, and that's going to the general fund. So we are bringing in that much from one agency. Sadly, though, they are not going to use us anymore because of our turnaround time. And our turnaround time is that 2 years because it's taking so long because we only have one GCMS. And I'm not saying this is like an uncommon problem. A lot of labs are backlogged. It's just the way it is right now. But with DeSoto actually using us, brought a lot to us. So then Hernando started using us, and word of mouth spread, and so we got that North Mississippi up there coming down to us. And we just got Lafayette because of Hernando and DeSoto. So it was really, really awesome. And Tallahatchie County, it's like 3 hours, 3.5 hours one way. And they bring us a couple of cases now and then.
And if you got the new equipment, how would that affect turnaround time? How much would that decrease your turnaround time?
Oh, it'd immaculately decrease it. So right now, it takes, depending on what the case is, a turnaround. I did a solid pill case, which we're receiving a lot of pills, and it was 2 months of straight running on that one GCMS. So that's the only case I could work, was that one pill case. But if I had that secondary GCMS, possibly a third one, other cases could be running simultaneously. So when you're losing that time from the one being used, the second one you could turn around cases, those smaller ones, in less than a month.
I have a question. If we've got that kind of income generated, couldn't we just get a loan and pay it back from the, I mean, I'm still a banker thinking you've got enough to service.
See,
Are we using it somewhere else?
here's my suggestion, is that you and I sit down and we look at the cost of those machines versus the charge that you're charging for, and we'll look at a payback period and do a business analysis so that we can come back to the city council and the mayor and say, listen, this is the cost, this is the flow through that we can do, this is the time it will take to pay it back. But I did want to make sure that, let's say you got 2 new machines in addition to the one you have. Do you have the personnel to already run them?
There's actually only 2 of us that do it, so we could potentially look at a third person, but they'd start as a trainee, and they wouldn't be able to do casework until a year and a half.
So if you're talking about 2, then you're really talking about not using the one that you're using today?
No, I'm gonna keep using that one.
Oh, you can do multiple cases on the machines then, so you've got, okay, all right. So, well, I'm even happier with that since it doesn't cost for another head count. So I just think we need to sit down and look at the costs and then look at the payback period. And are you confident, are you competitive as far as what you charge?
We are. We can't charge any more than what we're charging currently. We would lose those smaller agencies, and we wouldn't then be competitive with the state. Our pricing always matches them, except we do cell phones, and we charge $200 a cell phone case.
The only concern I have is I don't want the city of Columbus incurring expense to provide for smaller towns because they can't afford anymore. That's difficult for me because if we're using our local tax money to support this and the revenue, if as a matter of fact they're getting a bargain because the city of Columbus citizens are paying for the cost of your lab, I just think that we need to make sure that whatever the cost is to process, including your payroll and these machines, we're recouping that somehow from those localities.
Well, like I said, we have 25 agencies, so the bigger agencies can offset those smaller ones that bring us, 20, 25 in a year, where you have one agency bringing you 80 to 90 in a day.
Wow. Okay, let's do that. Whenever you're available, let's sit down. Just stop in and we'll take a look at this process and put together some sort of business plan for it.
I kind of think I one together.
What's that?
I said, I kind of think I already have one together, because like you mentioned, like leasing one. Well, at one point, we were looking into that and doing a monthly payment. Well, when I do our invoices each month, at the first of the month, we're bringing in anywhere from $4,000 to $7,000 a month. And so the lease was about $2,000 to $3,000. So if that money could have come back to us instead of general fund. it could have been. Okay. Okay.
Thank you so much. All right. The police department roof replacement and air unit. Who wants to take that one on?
I'll start it off and then this time last Thursday, we had a flood at the police department. And what has happened, this is not the only time it happened, so this is about the fourth time it happened, but this time the water went further from the patrol division all the way over to the lobby of the police department. And it's, we've been looking at this and we've tried to, I think last time we had about 3 different estimates. We can either patch or we can replace it. Money available, I would suggest that we replace it, because all we're gonna do is keep on patching, and water just gonna find another way to get in there. So when you come there, the side that it was on one side where the front of the building was coming through that door, we sort of got that balance, but now it's on the other end there by the patrol division where the water comes in and it just don't drip, it comes in as a flood. And we've damaged it, we've replaced the floors back there, we had to replace some equipment back there again, and so there are estimates on it, and we've had that, and I'll let you for that, and it's not in our budget.
Good morning. I am
Morning,
definitely an advocate for our employees, and what I'm worried about is the health and safety of our employees at this point in time. The roof is just gone, it's shot. There's nothing else we can do for it. I've had in various contractors to give us estimates on the roof. It's to the point now where they don't even want to give us any more estimates on the roof. You know, once you call them out and they've patched and patched and patched, and you keep calling them back again, and we don't want to spend the money to replace the roof, where you're really just setting yourself back. Mr. Stafford has provided for all of us an estimate on what it would take to replace the roof. Now, my suggestion or my recommendation is that we replace it all together, because we do have I think somewhere around a $10,000, $12,000 estimate to kind of do some patching, and then we also have, thank you, Kevin. We also have, that's the reflash all penetrations, the $10,000 to the $12,000 estimate. But to remove and to replace, we're talking about $590,000, $660,000, and a complete overlay of the roof. The estimate would be $220,000, $240,000. That seems like a lot of money, but we're talking about a very, very old building. And I'm sure Mr. Stafford could share this with you all as well. The economy part of it is the $10,000 to the $12,000 amount. We're talking about a few months or so, and we're right back in the same situation again. So we're throwing away money. I don't per se know if we have the money available. I don't know, but I think it's best for us at this point to replace the roof.
You do have 2 figures, I'm a little confused. The 500 something and the 600 something, those combined or one or the other?
Yeah, she said 220K. Yeah, I wrote that down.
Let me do it in order.
Right, when I order.
It's actually 3 different approaches. So the first,
Before y'all go through it, let me ask y'all to continue with this too, as you go through this. One, it's just the main building. We also have leaks in the strip mall. And 3, we've talked about these before, and one of the things I believe we talked about was, and this would bring Casey in, I think, a little bit, is maintaining those roofs after there needs to be a plan to keep those roofs cleaned and things, I think, if I remember this correctly, so that this doesn't happen again as soon. So if you can address all of those things as you're going through it.
I'll do it. So I'll start with the maintenance side because that's the easiest. We got on the roof right before Christmas, And I say we, by the way, full clarity, Bill Whittle with JBHM, the roof is not a civil engineering thing necessarily, and the scope and size of this really gets more into the architectural world. So from a ethical standpoint, I wanted to bring in an architect to do that. So Bill Whittle is who helped put these numbers together with JBHM. But with that, we both got on the roof. Your water's coming through all your penetrations from all your HVAC units that are on the roof. They've been patched numerous times. Your warranty on your roof when that building was initially built magically is 1 year past now. So that's just how things happen, right? So you don't have a warranty on the roof anymore, and your patches you've had over the years are wearing out. So the cheap and economical approach is to come in and patch it right now. That's that $10,000 to $12,000 cost. That's one option. That'll probably buy you potentially a year, potentially 5 years, depending on how good the work holds out, right, and how storms go and decay goes. But the maintenance side, when we got up there are leaves that have landed on the roof. They go down into the very front where y'all seen some water coming in the front entry of the municipal complex. There was a tree growing out of some of the leaves that had gathered up there that had decayed over time, formed a good enough soil, birds bring in seed, boom, trees growing up there. So that, with a simple blower once or twice a year, should be able to take care of that. So that's just something to put on the to-do list long term. But with that, obviously the new roof would clear that up. But we did pull the tree while we were up there, though. So at least we didn't take a shovel up there with us to do anything else at the time. But so that's the cheap option, right? That at least keeps you in business and keeps water. There are areas inside, if y'all haven't been in, where the drop ceiling has been pulled out. You can see daylight through some of the penetration. So it's not going to be a hard fix, if you will, for a stopgap. But the next option of cost, I'll go in order of cost, is the overlay. Because you've had these penetrations, you have insulation under the roof, it's gotten wet. Your decking's gotten wet. If you were to just overlay, while it's cheaper, and that was the $220 to $240 cost range, if you overlay, you're keeping the current roof in place. It'll stop your leaks, but then you have the possibility of all that decaying underneath the roof you hadn't really fixed. You're going to have mold issues, and so that brings on a second concern, but it does fix the leaks for that time, and you get new material up there, right? The third option is the actual remove and replace. That's that $590,000 to $660,000, and we're giving just a range. Because again, we have a one-time assessment. All three of these options have been run by a contractor who have quoted in the past and said these are the costs of what they were seeing, and that was as of February of this year that we looked at those. So those are your three options of cost, and as you can see, it widely varies. But anyhow, that's just for the municipal complex, and so it's and look, there's areas that are worse than others. If you go the patch route, we can prioritize that, but you can patch everything up there, all those penetrations for that 10 to 12.
I like that better, and then y'all get with Mr. Jim on a plan to get it replaced within the next year.
Well, and I think too, we need to, as we're doing this, because prices are gonna continue to go up. She was up here from, they have bad leaks in her area too. And we're talking about going in with new equipment in that, potentially in the lab, where you've got, I've been in there and seen their buckets. So I think that would suggest that we try to figure out what it's gonna cost to do all of it. And work on, like Councilman Beard said, work on a plan to try to do both. Because they're only gonna continue to get worse. But then I would also highly recommend that we have a maintenance plan on trying to get as much life out of those roofs as we can in the future.
And for the urgency situation, I do want to point out, it is not leaking in the evidence room, but it could be. So I just want to explain
So
how important this is.
This 10 to 12 will at least stop us for now, so we can regroup and get the best plan possible. What does that need to be in
Put it on
a motion at the next board meeting, or
Yeah.
Jim, where are we getting this money?
10 to 12?
Yeah,
We'll find it.
okay.
I would just tell you that my experience at least the university has the same old buildings, is that patching doesn't buy you much. It buys you a little bit of time, but then where you didn't patch starts to leak. The only question I had is on your proposal, if you were doing the roof replacement, is the building usable while you're replacing the entire roof?
Yes.
So you can.
Come in and still use it, correct.
Okay, so you still would be able to use the building then?
Yes.
Okay. And now we heard of one other building, and I'm not sure which one it was, but it's the one we share with the county. It's got a roof that's leaking.
They brought that up at the supervisor's meeting, yeah.
Which building?
Maxim Medical, fire and marine.
So, I mean,
They
seems
come-
like we have some a roof challenge in front of us.
We have, yes.
I believe that's a metal roof, so that one's gonna be much less expensive
And you let the county replace it.
than this roof. This is a rubber membrane roof with multiple.
I think if they've mentioned it to me in passing, and I wanna think it's like a $6,000 job.
We've mentioned things to them in past and just let it pass on by.
I wanna say, I'm going from what was in the paper, so you may be able to tell me better, Brian, than I can remember, but recall was like 60,000, I don't know why, but for the whole thing, so I think patching.
Maybe
was
I'm thinking of
small.
a different thing that they talked to me about, the sheriff.
Remember offhand?
I don't remember either, but maybe I just wanted to drop the zeros. I don't
And
know.
the roof on the little strip mall, metal flat,
So we haven't looked at it yet, and Regina mentioned it, and I've already let Bill know that if that came up, we'd be glad to get back up there and do another assessment on it and bring the same difference back, couple it together, and what I'm hearing, that's probably the way you wanna go, is look at the patch on both of those right now, economy of scale to do both, and then come back with a plan to eventually replace both, get it fixed right, with a new warranty and new material and all that good stuff.
And while we're talking about roofs, I don't think we discussed this either, but the farmer's market annex also, I've gotten quotes on all of these buildings way before now. That one also has a roof leak, so when they get in there and start moving around pretty good, they will have buckets too.
We looked, somebody was guesstimating on how much time that roof had. What I'm hoping to do with that one is, talk to some, people who might help us, like donate to do a metal roof, like to match all the way across, see what those types of things would cost, and then bring it to the council. But I'm hoping to try to get some of that donated at no cost. But I know when they were painting in there, they painted some of the, water stains on the ceiling. But somebody mentioned something about that roof. Was
Yeah, I
it you?
didn't look at the roof or look at the cost of it, that shouldn't be a huge cost, especially if you overlay with just a metal roof.
Yeah.
And that's a shingle, well, most of it's a shingle, the other half's metal, but anyway.
But the idea, Regina, and we were just talking about this in passing, I think Kevin and I were talking about it, was to try to do a metal that would match what was on the other side too, because we've got some issues with water coming under that metal side.
Did we find out what all that 1.5 can be used for, that we got from Jackson? You know, one person said it was just for City Hall, and another person said it was for all of it.
Well, the last thing I heard on that was just City Hall.
Okay.
And so what we did was, we had to go back, and I think I sent that to y'all. Kevin Kevin was fishing at the time, but Zach helped me. Yeah, Zach helped us get, because the roof was not replaced on City Hall when the last refurbishment happened. There's some major issues in the basement underneath us. We got leaking in this building too. So everything we put together on that was for City Hall, because they said it could only be used for City Hall if we get it.
Do we have any other buildings that's leaking?
Trotter needs new furniture.
Anything?
What buildings don't leak?
You got something leaking? What?
At the, activity building, that's why we have to do it.
Activity
Y'all not looking
building
at the fire
leaking.
department?
No.
The activity, center, that may be an issue, in Pros Park.
Well, we need to get those same donations from down yonder to come this way.
Yeah, there've been, like, we had a $1,000 donation for, getting the iPads and stuff for the kids. So yeah, we do. The more we can get across the board, the better.
I know prior to working with Regina, Ms. Pat did mention, she thought money was set aside in the budget to patch the CPD roof. I do not know to what extent or what amount, but that was mentioned at one time.
So let me ask you this, are the leaks in the police department side, are they as bad as what they have over on the other side? You?
On the police side, it's worse. That's what that wall is where we keep all the camera systems and where we keep, well, the main heart of the police department. That's where we keep all our electrical equipment, and some of that electrical equipment is damaged. Because this week we had to replace some power strips that got damaged by the water. And I'm talking, when I tell you that was water up to about feet deep, coming all across this road, across that whole room back there.
Was it leaking today with this rain, do you know?
No, not today.
Yes.
Hopefully it will.
It has to sit there. It sits
It's-
there for a little bit
gotcha.
and it finds a way in, and that's I'm sort of like Jim. I worry about a temporary fix of this reflash penetration. I've done this for quite some time now, and I've met with so many people who have looked at the roof, and I've heard this over and over again. I don't think this is gonna take care of the issues we have in hand. I think we're gonna be right back here again.
And the other big concern is over there, for Clyde Edmonds over there, is that their evidence over there, we don't want evidence to get ruined.
If we pass this $10,000, which would at least put a hold, this, at least stop us from getting worse, right?
I would say it would stop from the raining inside.
Okay, well, and then we'll address how to come up with 600,000. Is that something, if we approve this Tuesday night, they can start Wednesday morning kind of thing, or what?
And under 50, you can get 2 quotes and run with it. So you won't have to go through the formal public bid process. And there's already several contractors who are familiar with it, but to our point, they've been bugged so much about quoting this and quoting that option. They just said, "T, y'all get ready and put a budget and maybe move
Well,
forward."
am I safe to say
So,
we're
yes.
gonna pass this Tuesday night, so get something rolling, we can't wait.
10,000 or 600,000?
This 10.
I was about to say, no,
No.
600,000.
But I think
it's safe to say we'll pass 10 to at
Yeah.
least stop our problem, so if we can get that rolling.
Councilman Brandon, that includes the police department as well as, the crime lab, their issue too.
We can, I would say we could throw that in and it would still be under 50. Yeah,
Okay, it's still, okay, that's.
Whatever needs to be repaired.
for those 2 facilities.
So we don't have to have umbrellas at work, then just
And buckets.
get it did. Right.
I hear you, Regina. I know it's got to, this won't fix it, and
Yeah.
we can't just let this sit here after we do it. We need to be very proactive in working with Jim to try to find the resources to fix it permanently.
And
Just
one
so-
thing, like you
just so we don't have to
said,
build an ark for y'all down there to float
all
in.
departments
Try
need to
get
come up
this-
with a maintenance plan too. Please,
Maintenance,
please,
yes.
please,
Yes,
please,
maintenance
please,
plan.
please, please.
Yeah. All right, any other questions on the roof issues? All right, thank y'all so much. Thank you, appreciate it. All right, executive updates. One thing I will tell you is that last Wednesday, Jeff Turnage and I went over to Greenville to meet with the magistrate and our maritime attorney that we have there, and the barge company that hit our bridge. And we went over to begin discussions of having that fixed. As you know, and Kevin can speak to this a little bit too, because we had him on the phone while we were doing it. We can't go into a lot of detail on it right now because it's in litigation. But the magistrate is working hard to try to get a solution for us early June. What we did make clear to them was that the city was not in a position to pay for anything to fix that bridge. That, you know, they damaged it, and that we needed to settle. We didn't have any room to negotiate with them on the price, basically. So that's kind of where we are on that. Jeff felt, he was very encouraged. We were there all day long. We thought they would make an offer and we would say, no, it's gonna cost this, and then that would be it. But there was a lot of discussion back and forth. They had us in different rooms and all those things. And so they understand that the costs are rising to fix it. The bridge is a danger. If it were to collapse or if somebody was injured, they're gonna be held responsible for a lot of this. But there is maritime law that you have to work through to get to these settlements. Like, for example, there's some laws that stipulate, like, they're only required to pay the amount of what it would cost to replace their barge, basically. And was it one barge at fault, or was it all the barges that were there? You know, what's that cost? So I'm not gonna say any more than that to make it more complicated, because I don't understand it all. But our attorney over there is also working very hard to try to move this, because they've stalled some. The first estimates that we gave them, they came back and with costs to fix it, but it would not meet the archives and history requirements. So that was rejected. So they know that we've got to work within that. So anyway, the word on it is this: it looks good right now, that hopefully we'll have a solution in early June. We will probably be able to go into executive session with y'all on Tuesday and give y'all more details, specific details, but we can only say so much publicly right now because we are, and then Jeff may call me up and say, you said too damn much. But I'm trying to give y'all a good idea of where we are. It's moving forward. So that's a good thing. Other executive updates.
Community outreach was busy over the holiday weekend. They had to put several families in hotels. Public Works, the Action Center, Code Enforcement, and Building Inspection met for a demonstration for a new ticketing software. Special thanks again to Mr. Langford and his staff for getting our boom trucks up and running. We believe this will make a visible difference. Human Resources Director Ms. Pat and the hiring committee interviewed an IT applicant. Public Works has 2 new laborers and 2 new boom truck drivers. There will be a historic commission meeting June 6th at 5:30 here in the public reception room. And Zoom will still be available, but I think this will be their first in-person meeting since the start of the pandemic. Code Enforcement and the Police Department are addressing a vacancy issue with the Dollar General on Main Street. Parks and Recreation had a successful open house for their summer camp at Simscott. And the Fire Department did a presentation for the senior citizens. Was that at Simscott?
Townsend.
At Townsend. I've met with all the 3 departments regarding their budget concerns. And I met with Theo with the Carnegie Superfund site. We're hoping to have a date soon for their next meeting in Columbus. And the Columbus Lowndes County Airport will be serving breakfast on Saturday from 7:30 to 10:30. The airport manager, Dan Dusty, is inviting everyone out. There is no cost. And there you get to view the grounds, and you get to, if there are any pilots that are flying in, you could of course speak with them. But I think it would be a great idea if we showed our support, and we supported Mr. Dusty.
Very good. Any questions for Jamie? Mr. Jim?
Yeah, busy week. I'm pleased to say that we've made a lot of progress. I think that we're at the end of the road on the FEMA claim. I think that we have all the documentation we need, and we will be finishing up the last administrative project, which gets us some of our cost payback for just the administration of that claim. But I think, 2019, it's looked like it now, where you're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. So, of course, it's never done until FEMA decides it's done, and they may be coming back and auditing, and we'll be ready for them. We met with our outside auditors, our public auditors, Watkins, Ward, and Stafford yesterday. I think the 2020 audit is getting very close to being completed. FEMA was one of the big hangups, and I think we have that resolved with yesterday's meeting. And they will be presenting an engagement letter for the 2021 audit, which is due, unfortunately, at the end of June, so we will not make that deadline, but we will be in a lot better shape than we were for the 2020 audit. That engagement letter would then kick off the 2021 audit process, which will go much smoother than the 2020, I guarantee you that. And then I've also, we've started the budget process. Yesterday I took an online conference with Mississippi State, and they explained the municipal budget process for the state of Mississippi, which is very complicated, quite frankly. And now I'm concerned about the timeline, since September 15th is the absolute deadline for it. So now we need to get rolling on the budget process. I am concerned that if the economy starts to suffer or go into recession, that some of our revenue streams, like sales tax and stuff, may actually be impaired because of that. But so I think we need to be conservative in our budget process. We should be anyway, but I'm a little concerned that it may not be the same as last year type of situation, because quite frankly, the revenues have been very good this year, but a lot of it all depends on how the economy goes. And the last thing is that I have done some research on the type of finance report that the city council should get on a monthly basis from the finance department, and I will be working towards putting that together so that it's much more effective and gives you better management vision of what the finances are of the city, so that hopefully, Pierre, you won't have to ask me if we have the money, because you'll know whether we have the money or not.
Right.
And that's the right way. I mean, the mayor has from day one stressed transparency. There'll be you know, a good CFO always has some money tucked aside, but you'll always know it if I have it, because it's the citizens' money. So we'll get that finance report put together where you can have a lot of confidence in where we sit at the end of each month. So that's all.
Thank you. Jim's been doing yeoman's work trying to get us up to date on a lot of these things. Many times people don't realize how complicated the budgeting is and maintaining the finances of a municipality. It's very different from just a regular business, obviously. We have over 40 accounts coming into our general fund. So if you can imagine how difficult it is to keep your own personal bank account balance sometimes, you can imagine what that's like. So when you look at numbers, that's not always exactly where you are financially. So Jim is working really hard to make sure that y'all have the kind of accurate numbers that the council needs to make the kind of decisions that we were talking about today. He's also been very astute in trying to think of grant dollars that we can work with. He and Jamie have had many discussions about that, as have I. Let me be clear on the engagement letter that we will be getting from Watkins Ward and Stafford. That is for the city council to vote on whether to move forward with them for the next audit. Thank you. Jim's recommendation is that we work with them on this one, and then after the next audit, we can put it out for bids for other accounting firms to bid on. When we were talking to Watkins Ward and Stafford, they also do Starkville's. She mentioned that they had gone up on their fees to Starkville, and Starkville put it out for bid for others to bid on, and they were awarded it again because of their fee cost. So, but I think it is important that we do, offer others to bid on doing the work for us, looking at other accountants. At times, what Jim is saying, and he can speak more to this at the council meeting too, is because of the uniqueness of where we are financially right now, that it might be better for us to work with them going forward to get this next, audit done. But he is using terms that have been music to their ears on the things that he knows he needs to be preparing for them that they've had to do for us in the past. So it's a different dynamic than we've had in recent years, I think. So that's all good news. What else? Was there something else I was going to mention on the budgeting side of it? Oh, yes. I have been talking to Jamie and to Jim about this. We will have a budgeting schedule for y'all soon so that you can see at what steps we're going to be at. Actually, Jamie is ahead of schedule this year in meeting with the department heads. But there is a timeline that's recommended by the state that we hit each, mark. And last year we were running behind a little bit on those marks. And part of that was because of a new administration coming in and all that. But we're going to be proactive in making sure we're hitting those timelines and having the town hall meetings where citizens can come in and hear the budgeting process, where we are, what we're thinking, so we can get input from them as well. That's something that I really believe in doing, but it's also is recommended by the state that you have as much citizen input on this. This is what it was. I saw the chief come in, the fire chief, to talk about the fire academy. Do you want to do that real quick?
I can briefly if you allow.
Yes.
And I will be brief, as so many others have come up and spoken more eloquently than I can. But the fire department is willing to partner with others in the city to provide a fire academy for our youth this summer. There's a great opportunity to reclaim the youth. We actually started the fire academy back in 2011, and it was aimed at public officials. And at the time, we had council persons and other people in the community come through and found out that firefighters do more than barbecue and play dominoes. And through that effort, we actually convinced the council for the need for our new ladder truck. And we want to take that and aim it towards our youth. We've got activities, we'll bring them in, we'll show them the things that we do in the fire department, and it'll be actually a junior fire academy for those individuals. A big part of that is physical fitness. We're going to work out those other muscles besides the video game thumbs. We're going to engage them, and there's an opportunity there that will actually set a spark where we get some future firefighters here in Columbus. So I'm very excited about the opportunity. We're looking again, as you said, to partner, and if there are some big kids that want to come in and join with us, we'd be more than welcome to.
Well, Chief, I'll have to tell you that we had the 5 to 7 year olds from one of the local daycares that I believe visited the fire department after they visited City Hall. And I introduced them to Mayor Possum and read a story, which I think they really enjoyed. But when I asked them where their next stop was going, and they said they were going to the fire department, I said, well, that's much cooler than what you're going to do here. And I see from the pictures that Angela showed me, they had a blast down there with y'all yesterday, too.
I think the firefighters had more fun than the kids.
Well, Angela, we had a great time with them here, too. We would like to get more kids in here on a regular basis. They were great and had a lot of questions and very smart, very well behaved, just a delight to have, and I know that y'all enjoyed them as well. So, and I know the kids visit there a lot too. So, and the police department too, they enjoy learning about the cops and what y'all do in the fire.
They do. We always let them go to the police department first because that's our measuring stick. So, and Chief knows that I'll always call them, and the kids will always say they had a better time with us. He scares them with the jail cells.
Yeah. Well, I always have to apologize to the chief and the police officers because I just love fire trucks. You know, that was one of the first things I did, and so I tend to. I think I sound like I'm being favorites, but I'm not, because both departments I love the most. But those fire trucks, man, they're hard to compete with.
Yeah, they are, Mr. Mayor, but trust me, Chief Shelton makes sure he breaks me back down. There you go.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else, guys, before we conclude? Yes, ma'am.
This will be real quick, but I spoke to Miss Jamie and also to Jim and Casey. We still got an ongoing problem with the cemetery, and that's the potholes out there. I'm sure everybody that goes out there knows that. We do have the ample amount of money in the perpetual upkeep fund, and I spoke to Jim about that, but I have to get approval through the council to be able to use that money. So I want to get on the city council's agenda maybe for Tuesday to ask for permission to use money to fill the potholes. And I think in talking to Mr. Bush, we could take about $2,500 from perpetual upkeep just to do a temporary crush run fill and make it look better than what it does for right now, because the pavement project, I'm sure Mr. Stafford. Right.
Let me ask you, I'm glad you said that adding things. Do we still have a hole on concrete, the little culverts, the driveway things?
We're replacing some of those now.
All right, good. Thank you. Warfare, entire warfare.
Just so I'm on the same page, I remember this coming up. Was there a $60,000 figure, and that was to do what?
Patch some of the bad areas that are not draining and bad asphalt in the cemetery.
Okay, and she was talking about the crush run. This is the way to patch, or this is an addition to them coming with blacktop?
Temporary, yeah. So this is temporary limestone, basically a patch to hold up what's there, so it's passable.
Yeah. Okay.
The bigger picture was over 50, and so y'all approved us to put together a plan. So what we're bringing back is a base bid to get these bad areas fixed, but we're gonna have to add alternates to also pay the entire deal while you're there for economy of scale, and that also kind of dovetails into y'all's discussion about where the rest of the bond funds go. Do you want to put a bigger picture all together? But all that's, the forensic cemetery stuff has been quantified, and we're putting together final plans on that.
So you're proposing what Tuesday night?
to get $2,500 from the perpetual upkeep fund.
Okay. And that fits along with this plan, so that's, okay.
I'm so glad you brought that up because that was an important topic to talk about. I was down at the cemetery on Saturday of Memorial Day to thank the veterans for putting flags out. And they were commenting to me about how good they thought the cemetery was looking. But we still have a lot of maintenance issues down there. I think we've gotten a lot of the cutting of the grass and stuff under control. We're also looking at maybe how to get the weeding and done there. But I also want to mention that I met with a group this week about Sandfield Cemetery as well, which is another historic cemetery that we need to pay attention to. Now, what I have learned recently is that the city only owns the older side of it. The other side across the street there's a lot of question about that. So I've talked to some people in the Sandfield area about it, but I've also got Jeff researching who owns that side of it and what does it say. I mean, I've even proposed eminent domain if we have to, but there's a lot of issues over there. But there is a person that came by to see us that's got about $17,000 in grant money who wants to use that on the more historic side of Sandfield to be able to identify where all the graves are. There's a lot of, well, from what they were telling me the other day, I didn't realize this, there are probably people that are buried underneath some of those businesses in the highway there because that cemetery is so old. But there's been a lot of discussion over the years about trying to fence in, the older section of Sandfield. So to me, it's just as important that we pay attention to the needs at Sandfield as it is in Friendship. So there's also some groups that have reached out to me because a lot of cemeteries of those age have a lot of nonprofits that work for the upkeep from a historical standpoint of those cemeteries. So those are all the things that we're looking at those, and many times the cemeteries don't come under our discussions very much, and those are important things that we need to do. So thank you for bringing that up, but the roads down there but some of the work that's going on down there has been much improved.
Who maintains Sandfield? Do we, Daisy? We mow it already?
The historic side, we actually maintain both sides.
And we don't own the other side. I thought we did, but we don't. And there's some serious concerns down there, multiple concerns that we probably need to talk about at a later date. Well, and burying on top of people and parking, and it's just, we cannot not address those issues. We've got to.
And I'll follow with Friendship a little later. I just wanted to get that taken care of with the potholes, but shortly after that, I will be bringing forth the water issue because the water is off, and it's off because we got so many leaks. But I did talk to the state auditor's office and also to the Secretary of State's office, and they have told me that as long as the money is in perpetual upkeep and it's for the upkeep of the cemetery, we should be using it. Now, we will have to provide an annual report to the Secretary of State's office as to how we're using it and how much we're using. We could use the whole amount if it's approved by the Secretary of State's office. If not, we can use it accordingly. So I do want to get the water on as soon as possible so we can maintain the lawn out there, make it look better. Of course, we got a lot of ant mounds out there, so on and so forth. But right now, I'd like to be on Tuesday just for the potholes.
How much money is in that perpetual fund?
144,000, something like
I thought
that.
it was 270.
That's what's that?
I thought it was 270.
It might
That
be.
was my last report.
Trying to recall. But it's
That's enough.
It's quite a bit. Yeah. I mean, it may not be enough to do everything we want to do at the cemetery, but it's a pretty big fund.
Right. And I do have about 3,000 set aside now to the field house out there for the lawn care crew. We will be replacing the doors and the houses out there. I do have enough money to do that with, but the regular upkeep for the roads and all, I will need to use the perpetual upkeep fund.
And another cemetery that comes up that people contact us periodically about is Union Cemetery, which is behind the school, Hunt. It's behind Hunt. It's also a very historic cemetery as well. We do not own it. There was some questions about it. We were trying to track down who actually did, but some of the land around there the cemetery is really in pretty good shape if you go back there. It's the entrances where there's some issues there. that I've talked to Kevin and some of the others about. We've got to address that property back there that is owned by the state now, I think. But there's a lot of flooding back there. It just looks bad. Now, the cemetery is a little oasis when you go in there, but there are some people that have called about sinking of some of the headstones in there. Again, we don't own that, but I think we need to make sure we're doing everything in that area to make sure that there's some citizens' concerns there too.
Yolanda, we outsource the mowing of the cemetery, right?
Right.
Okay. I mean, you referenced the outsourcing.
Well, and that group has asked me about if there's other areas within the city we could use them, because they've specialized in they've invested in some, the type of, mowers that go through the graves and stuff. And, so yeah, that's a group that's, I think would be, if there are other areas within the city that would help them cut, is potential, yeah. All right, anything else? All right, thanks everybody, we're adjourned.